Hello, Dr. Moreno. This is Jeremy George from Juris Prudence. This is my video project. Today I'll be talking about personal property and bailments, and I'll also be talking about the topic of agency and how that pertains to the funeral service industry. So to start, I'd like to talk about personal property. So personal property comes in two types. Tangible and intangible. So tangible personal property is property that you can physically touch, things like cars and clothing and televisions, things that you can touch and might be movable, things that you can see and that are, right there. There's also intangible personal property, things like a copyright that your company owns, or a patent, or maybe like a 401k. You know it's there, and you could trade it in, but you can't really see it. So that would be intangible property. So things like royalties and things that you gain income from and that you can sell, but that you can't physically see or touch would be intangible property. So there are three main ways to obtain and acquire personal property. The main one being purchase. You can purchase goods, and you could also receive personal property in the form of a gift. Somebody could give you personal property. In a gift, the person that receives the gift would be a donee. The person that gives the gift would be the donor. You could also obtain personal property through a will, when somebody leaves you assets like a house, or in the form of money that may be put into a trust. There's also a relationship that can occur in personal property when you give your personal property for somebody else to hold for a specified amount of time, with the intention that you'll be getting that property back at some point. That relationship is called a bailment. So in a bailment, the person that owns the property and that gives it to be held, that person is called the bailor. The person that receives the personal property would be the bailee. There are a number of types of bailment, and they're organized by who benefits. For an example, a bailment for the sole benefit of the bailee would be if I lend my neighbor a chainsaw so that they can cut down overhanging limbs in their yard. So that's a benefit to the bailee, and me as the bailor, I really don't get much benefit. A bailment for the sole benefit of the bailor, an example of that might be if I give that neighbor my cat to watch for the weekend while I'm out of town. They don't really get any benefit from watching my cat, but I get the benefit of them taking care of my animal. So that's a bailment for the sole benefit of the bailor. Many bailments come in the form of mutual benefit, where, for example, I take my suit to the dry cleaners, and they clean my suit for a fee, and then they return it to me. So both parties benefit from that bailment. There's also constructed bailment, and that occurs when the bailee really didn't have a choice on receiving that personal property. For example, that happens a lot with businesses. For example, a restaurant at the end of the night, they receive some coats and they put it in their lost and found. They don't really own that property, and they as a bailee will hold that property until the bailor will return and receive that property. That is a constructed bailment. So now I'd like to talk about agency and how that pertains to the funeral service industry. So when somebody hires somebody to act on their behalf, that's known as an agency. The person hiring somebody to help them and act on their behalf, they're known as the principal. And the principal hires an agent to act on their behalf. An agent may have a written power of attorney to act on the benefit of the principal in writing. There are a number of types of agents. It could be a general agent to handle numerous things, like an attorney may handle many different things for their client, or in our case, a funeral director may act as a general agent to act on the behalf of the deceased person's family in many different aspects. They may deal with embalming services, they may deal with the death certificate, they may act as an agent to hire contractors and third parties to escort the funeral procession, or they may deal with a florist, or they may even deal with the cemetery business in acting on the benefit of the deceased family in obtaining information or obtaining burial services for the family. So they're acting with a kind of an express authority to do those jobs, but they may also, that express authority may be implied that as part of their job as an agent, that they're required to do things for the family's benefit. For example, they may set up an obituary with a newspaper or media source, and they may write an obituary, and they have the implied authority to, maybe edit that and get it set up and how it's going to look. They may have kind of a general implied authority to handle that. It would be like an implied authority to when and where the funeral director may want the flowers delivered so that they have them on time. So that's kind of an implied authority. So that power of attorney that an agent has, it's expected to be in effect until death. And after death, that agency and that responsibility is over unless the person has a durable power of attorney. And a durable power of attorney proceeds after death. For example, a lawyer may have durable power of attorney to be an executor for a deceased person's property so they can handle their will and get their property out to the beneficiaries. So an agent may deal with third-party contractors that they're not really employed by the agent, but they are hired by the agent. So the agent may, like for example, the florist, the agent doesn't run the floral shop, but they hire the florist to make arrangements and deliver the floral arrangements. That would be kind of like a third party. So agents are very important to the funeral service industry. As a funeral director, you are an agent for the family, and they put their trust in you to handle things for their benefit. And so agency can be pretty important to our industry. I hope I've explained a few things correctly. Thank you.